The American Express Gold Card, once considered the absolute best card for anyone who eats food because of its high multipliers for restaurants and groceries. But with the recent refresh to the card, is it time to avoid it like the plague? In this episode of Who That Card For, we're going to evaluate the American Express Gold Card to determine if this card is worth it for you. Before we jump into things, please consider hitting the subscribe button down below and giving the video a like, and be sure to check out the links down below to learn more about other credit cards. And as a heads up, this video goes much deeper than my recent ones. I'll show you how to calculate the personal value of a card just like I do. Let me know in the comments if you prefer this style of video or would rather have higher level, more general explanations in future videos. But now, let's jump into the video. First, we have an annual fee of $325 for the American Express Gold Card. This can be a lot higher than you may feel comfortable paying, but as we'll see later on, you may find positive value from the card despite this high annual fee. In terms of multipliers, you earn 4x points at restaurants up to $50,000 in a year. You earn 4x points on groceries at US supermarkets up to $25,000 in a year. 3x points on flights booked direct with airlines or on amextravel.com. 2x points on prepaid hotels and other eligible travel booked through amextravel.com. And 1x points on everything else. In terms of other benefits, you have a slew of credits with the American Express Gold Card. First, you have a $120 Uber cash credit as $10 monthly. You have a $120 dining credit as $10 monthly at select partners, specifically Grubhub, Cheesecake Factory, Goldbelly, Wine.com, and Five Guys. You also have a $100 Resi credit as $50 semi-annually. You have $84 Dunkin' credit as $7 monthly, and you have a $100 experience/property credit for a minimum 2-night stay booked through the hotel collection. So this one is special because you can get it every time you book a 2-night stay through the hotel collection. However, I would be careful not to overvalue this credit since the hotel collection generally only includes more expensive properties and no budget stays. So if you don't typically stay at these mid-tier hotels, then this credit may not be worth anything to you. One more important feature that we'll begin talking about in this series is downgrade paths. So for the American Express Gold Card, there's only one card you can downgrade to, and that's the $150 annual fee American Express Green Card. This card is not particularly interesting, but we won't dive too deep into the details of this card. The important thing to note is that there's no $0 annual fee card you can downgrade the Gold Card to. This has important implications for your credit score that we'll cover later on. Next, I wanted to go through how to use my personal calculator that I created for the Gold Card, which you can see on the screen now. From the top down, you see the annual fee of $325, the list of Amex Gold credits, and you can see a space to enter how much you value them. All the green cells in this spreadsheet are where you would enter your own numbers. And there are checks to make sure that you don't put any invalid numbers. You also put in your own cents per point value for MR points, with the default being 1 cent per point. And lastly, you will see a table with the multipliers and how much value you get from them. An important concept here is the your best multiplier column. Essentially, if you had two cards that both covered dining, one card at 1% back and the other at 2% back, then while you would get 2% back on dining from using card 2, you would only get 1% additional benefit from using card 2 over card 1. So as a concrete example, if you had the Chase Freedom Unlimited and the Amex Gold Card, the Freedom Unlimited earns 3% back on dining, while the Amex Gold earns 4% back. So while you do earn the 4% back on dining purchases with the Amex Gold, you're only earning an additional 1% back on dining over the Chase Freedom Unlimited. And this concept will be important later on as well. Finally, you see your total value earned from holding the Amex Gold Card at the bottom. There's also a disclaimer at the top of the Excel sheet noting that this calculator ignores sign-up bonuses. This is because almost all cards will be worth it in year 1 because of the sign-up bonus. So this card focuses on the long-term value of the card for you by ignoring the sign-up bonus. And I will go through an example of how to use this calculator later on. And now, as is tradition at this point, we will begin going through a general analysis based on your goals and where you are in your journey in the credit card game. So first, we're going to talk about whether you're on Team Cashback or Team Travel. First, we'll go through Team Cashback. It's important to note that membership rewards points can only be exchanged for cash at a rate of 1 MR point for 0.6 cents, or said another way, 0.6 cents per point. Another way to think of this is that 4x MR point multiplier in restaurants and groceries are really 2.4% cash back. You could instead go with a card like the Capital One Saver one, which earns 3% cash back in groceries and dining for no annual fee. Simply put, the Amex Gold is not meant for you if you are on Team Cashback. There are so many other no annual fee cards that will earn better than the Amex Gold if you're on Team Cashback. If you're on Team Travel, the Amex Gold may be an amazing card for you. All Amex MR point earning cards have access to transfer partners. And with transfer partners, you can earn 1 cent per point or 2 cents per point or even higher with more luxurious types of travel such as first or business class flights. With a relatively safe valuation of 1 cent per point, then the Amex Gold dining and grocery categories are some of the best multipliers in the game. However, even though you're on Team Travel, you will also need to evaluate the usefulness of the credits because of how high the annual fee is. If you don't find much value from the provided credits, then you really need to spend a lot of money on groceries and dining to earn positive value from holding this card. So let's walk through an example. Let's say that you value the Uber credit fully at the $120, and for the dining credit, you only value $5, and you find no value in any of the other credits. Then you immediately have an effective annual fee of $325 minus $125 equals $200 effective annual fee. Now, let's also say that you value MR points at the baseline 1 cent per point. This means that you would need to spend $5,000 in groceries or dining to break even on the Amex Gold. But you could instead have spent that $5,000 in groceries or dining on the no annual fee Saver One card, and you would have earned 3% back on either of those categories to earn $150. So the additional benefit you earn from holding the Amex Gold is really only an additional 1x point in groceries and dining, or $50 in this case. So in reality, because the Amex Gold is only giving you 1x points back on groceries and dining over the no annual fee Saver One card, you would need to spend $20,000 in groceries and dining to make the Amex card worth it over the Capital One Saver One. This concept is called opportunity cost or the cost of replacement. If, however, you're able to fully utilize just the Uber, dining, and Resi credits, then you will have a negative $15 effective annual fee. Or in other words, you are getting paid $15 to hold the card. So the MR points from the top tier multipliers are just the cherry on top of the credits that you already get positive value from. So what's the big takeaway? If you're on Team Travel, there isn't a cut and dry answer of whether the Amex Gold card is worth it for you. You need to run the numbers for yourself and figure out how much value you earn from the multipliers, credits, and benefits from a card, and only if you get positive value from a card should you open it. For a hybrid setup, this card again is really only useful if you plan to use it for travel purchases. You will only find value from MR points if you are dedicated to using them on travel due to their horrible cash out rate of 0.6 cents per point. This is in contrast to ecosystems like Chase Ultimate Rewards points or Citi Thank You points, where you can transfer their points or redeem them for cash back at 1 cent per point. So if you are trying to run a hybrid setup, I would only consider the Amex Gold if you are committed to using your MR points for travel and are okay knowing you won't have the flexibility of a safe cash out rate. Now let's move on to what stage of the credit card journey you're at. If you are early in your credit card journey, the Amex Gold is not for you. First, you probably won't be approved for the Amex Gold early in your journey because Amex typically wants credit scores at least above 680. And if you have no or little credit history, you probably won't be approved for this card. The next reason why is that this card has a high annual fee, which will only keep increasing, and you have no downgrade path to a no annual fee card. What this means is that your age of accounts, which makes up 15% of your credit score, is dependent on a card that you may one day not find value in and may want to cancel. If you do decide to cancel your card, that because your Amex Gold is an older account, it will have a greater impact on your credit score whenever you choose to close it. So let's walk through an example of this. Say you only have 2 credit cards open. The Chase Freedom Flex opened in year 1 and the Amex Gold opened in year 2. In year 10, you open the Chase Freedom Unlimited. So your average age of accounts will be 10 plus 9 plus 0 divided by 3 equals 6.33. If you now decide to close the Amex Gold, your average age of accounts will drop to 10 plus 0 divided by 2 equals 5, which will hurt your credit score because your average age of accounts has dropped. Another reason to avoid American Express is due to the opportunity costs with other issuers' rules, such as the Chase 524 rule, Barclays 624 rule, and so on. Essentially, you should target cards and issuers that care about how frequently you open cards, or your velocity, first, and then you can move on to other issuers. So it may make sense to open 5 Chase personal credit cards first, then a Barclays card, and only then you might want to consider the Amex Gold. This depends heavily on what cards you're actually interested in, though. The reason to put American Express last is because they generally don't care that much about your velocity, not nearly as much as Chase and other issuers. So overall, I would avoid the Amex Gold while you are early in your credit card journey. When you're an intermediate, this is when I would begin recommending the Amex Gold card. You should have a base of no annual fee credit cards or cards that can be downgraded to a no annual fee card, so that down the line, if you choose to close the Gold card, your average age of accounts won't suffer too much. You also may, at this point, have a high enough credit score to get approved for the Gold card. So if you have both these credit score points already secured, then what other factors should you consider? While you're an intermediate, the main thing you're typically trying to do is build out your core credit card setup. Your core credit card setup means the collection of cards that you primarily use, making sure that all of your top spending categories are covered by some form of elevated spending multiplier, such as dining, travel, gas, rent, etc. Your top spending multipliers are personal to you and will probably have to evaluate your expenses to see what you spend the majority of your money on first, or create a form of budget so that you know where your money is going. If you find yourself spending a lot of money on groceries and dining and find value in the credits, then it definitely makes sense to get the Amex Gold card at some point. However, you once again need to consider opportunity costs. It may be worthwhile to get all your other credit cards first from difficult bank issuers such as Chase or Capital One, as mentioned before. So for intermediates, it may totally make sense for you to open the Amex Gold card, but make sure you evaluate what other cards you may want first, because it may make more sense to open those cards before the Gold card. For advanced users, the Amex Gold card is still potentially a great card. The sign-up bonus is awesome. Right now, there's an extremely high sign-up bonus of 90,000 membership rewards points plus 20% back on restaurant purchases up to $100. I see it consistently through my referral link if you want to check that out below. But these types of super high sign-up bonuses are exactly what advanced users are typically after. On top of this, the credits could make the Amex Gold card a keeper if you're able to get more than $325 of value from the card. A keeper card is simply a card that earns you positive value year after year. And at this point, your credit profile is also probably very solid, and you likely already have most of the cards from other issuers that you would consider getting. So I would say the Amex Gold is great for advanced users, provided you get positive value from the card. And at worst, the Amex Gold card is great, at least for the sign-up bonus. Now, what is my candid take on the card? Well, I think this card is extremely polarizing. If you live in an urban city with tons of resi restaurants and Dunkins around, then the Amex Gold card is easily an S-tier card. If, however, you find difficulty utilizing the credits, then the Amex Gold is a terrible card. It's unfortunate that some of the credits are so specific that it punishes people for where they live. If you live in a suburban area with no Dunkins and no resi restaurants, and you have your own car and you don't take Ubers, then it makes it so difficult to justify the annual fee on this card. All in all, this is another classic case where everyone needs to evaluate their own situation when determining the value of a card. For me personally, I found value in the Uber, dining, and resi credits, which already puts me at a negative $15 effective annual fee, and the multipliers are just icing on the cake. Hopefully this video brought you some clarity on who the Amex Gold card is for. Let me know if you like this style of video where I do a very deep analysis with examples in the comments below. I will also leave a link to the Amex Gold calculator I created in my website's helpful links section. You can find the link to my website in the description below or in my channel info. This is where I talk more about my own credit card journey and try to post helpful tools for you, my audience. Be sure to comment down below your thoughts about the Amex Gold, along with where you think I came up with the idea for the name of this series. Also comment down below which Amex Gold design you like the most. I personally am on team Classic Gold, shout out to my man Anthony Venture, but I want to get all three versions for myself just to compare them in real life. But thanks again for watching, and see you guys next time.